Thank you so much for that. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being such a wonderful conference. I've just come from the Brighton Table Tennis Centre. All right. Being leader is a multifaceted task. And it's fantastic. It's called a Sanctuary Centre as well, because there's young people and older people, local people, refugees, and so many others all coming together, all community activists, building the strength of community. That's the sort of thing we're about as a party, isn't it? Well done them, and thank you very much. And Dawn, thank you for what you just said, and thank you for the announcement you made about ending period poverty in this country. That's part of our policy. We're going to make sure that happens. We'll force the Tories to do it. If they don't, we will when we've won an election. It's very tempting to make long speeches, and I can hear the very wise advice of my late mother. Dear boy, she said, keep it short and get to the point quickly. She was a teacher. So thank you, Dawn, for what you said. This is the largest Labour Party conference we've ever held, I believe, the largest women's event at our annual conference, and it's very important that women are heard and debate properly, and the policies come from this as far as women are concerned. So we have to do even better as a party. We need to attract even more women into membership. We need to attract far more working class women into membership. We want to be a women's membership that reflects the totality of women all across the United Kingdom. "45% of the Parliamentary Labour Party is now women, 119 women MPs in Parliament. Absolutely phenomenal. And I am very determined that we meet our target of 50% female representation in the PLP through to the next election. I want to achieve that. And I'm very proud that we have a gender-balanced shadow cabinet, and this is the largest number of women there's ever been in a shadow cabinet or a cabinet. I want them to be the largest number of women in a cabinet, in government, running all kinds of departments. I would also say it's the most diverse shadow cabinet there has ever been. And again, if we're a party that truly reflects what this country is about, what the people who support us is about, then that diversity mustn't just be around the cabinet table. It's got to be all the way through our party and union structures and our society as a whole. It's our job to lead by example, and that's what I'm keen to do in our party. And on Tuesday at the National Executive, we were dealing with the issues of selections of the marginal constituencies, and 61% of our most marginal seats have all women shortlists, so there will be far more women in Parliament. In the Conservative Party, only 21% of the parliamentary party is women, and for the Lib Dems, it's still only 33%. And indeed, if Parliament was only made up of its female MPs, the Labour Party would be in government right now with a huge overall majority. So that might be a campaigning point for us, a women's-only Parliament. And it's without question that the Labour Party is the party of women's equality, no matter who else might try to claim that mantle. I want to improve female representation, and I want to remember Jo Cox and all that she contributed to our party, and the terrible way in which she was slain by those that would have a different and horrible world. But in her memory, we have many things, including the leadership programme, and that's provided mentoring and support and inspiration, which Jo provided to so many during her life, lifting women up and helping support other women wherever she went. And so I want you to thank Preet Gill and Rosie Duffield for the work they do. They're both those that came from their work within the Jo Cox Leadership Foundation. Congratulations on both of them on being elected to Parliament, and we look forward to inspiring women in leadership positions at every level. So it does mean particularly young women that become party members and become party activists, make sure they're inspired and given the support and confidence they need in order to succeed and represent our party. I want to say thank you to A lot of people, there isn't time to name check everybody, but I want to say thanks to Kezia Dugdale for the leadership she showed in Scotland and the hassles and abuse that she put up with as the leader of the party. But it's not just women at senior level who deserve thanks. Thousands of women took to the streets over 6 long weeks of our campaign in the general election. Between you and me, I wish it had been a bit longer, actually. I would have thought another week or two would have served us very well indeed. So next time Theresa May goes walking around Dalgethley and other places, I think she shouldn't be thinking in 6 weeks, 8, 9 weeks. It's fine by me. Our energy is inexhaustible to campaign all over the country. And the election results gave us a large swing to Labour. Our vote was up by 3 million, and we gained the largest vote for Labour in England since 1970, and we gained seats all over the country. I think it's incredible. We deprived them of their majority and their mandate and their reckless approach to Brexit, which was shown yet again yesterday. We are protecting jobs, protecting environment, protecting workers' rights and conditions, particularly paternity and maternity leave and 4 weeks holiday per year. We're going to protect all of those things. We are not in a race to the bottom of an offshore island that Boris Johnson would have us have on the shores of Europe. But there are other issues that face women in politics, and this is not the good side of it. The unbelievable and disgusting and disgraceful levels of abuse that women receive in public life is unacceptable from anybody to anybody. It has got to stop. And so the abuse that some of our colleagues in Parliament have received, the disgusting abuse that Luciana Berger has received, or the way in which Diane Abbott has been treated, who has received more abuse than anybody else, is simply out of kilter and out of court, and we will not accept it. All women who represent our party deserve our unqualified support. Diane has been representing a neighbouring constituency of mine for many years. She spent her whole life fighting prejudice and poverty. That's what she's doing as Shadow Home Secretary, and that's what I want her to be doing as the first black woman Home Secretary in this country's history. And all the women that are in the Shadow Cabinet, they've made incredible contributions. They've also made great sacrifices to bring this about. And so they have put themselves forward in order to develop policies for our party that do radically change the lives of women all over this country. And that is what we have to do. The Fawcett Society has found that just 17% of council leaders are women. That's barely more than there were 10 years ago, and only 33% of all councillors in England are women. At this rate, it will take 48 years to reach parity in England and 82 years in Wales. Now, I want to live a long time, but you know, I want to see it happen in my lifetime. In fact, I'd rather see it happen in this decade, okay? So let's work on that. And I acknowledge that the Tories have a woman leader, but their policies have actually hurt women a lot. Hurt women through their policies, their economic policies, and through the legislation they put forward, and the way in which they seem to be incapable of criticising Donald Trump in any atmosphere, shape or form whatsoever. He's cut the Planned Parenthood program. He's used derogatory and misogynist language about women. He's overseen the sacking of Judge Sally Yates, fantastic female judge who refused to implement the Muslim ban. And he's been more than vague and unsure in his condemnation of what were actually fascist terror attacks in Charlottesville that took the life of Heather Heyer. Let's remember her as a victim of that kind of behaviour. At the home, the Tories have implemented an ideologically driven austerity agenda which has wreaked havoc on the life chances of so many women. 86% of all government cuts have fallen disproportionately or completely on women. So it is up to us to challenge austerity, as we're doing, to put forward a different economic agenda as well, but it's also to look at our education system and ensure that women and girls are inspired to achieve the very most possible in school and their lives. I'm impressed when I go to colleges and go to apprentice training centres, engineering centres, and so many others, the number of girls that are now breaking into what was virtually a boys-only scenario and are able to train and become qualified engineers. Girls are just as capable of boys of doing all these technical jobs. They should not be put off it by stupid remarks and stupid behaviour by some of our media. It's up to us to support those girls in whatever they want to achieve in school. And then you look at what this government has done in the treatment of WASPy women. It's absolutely outrageous, the way in which they've been treated. And over the summer campaign, I've spent a lot of time meeting and talking with groups of WASPy women all over the country. Some of them are leading very, very difficult lives at the moment by an illogical, irrational and unfair action by government. We are going to take this challenge to the government. We will ensure there is a debate on a votable motion in Parliament. And if the Tories choose not to vote, we will state exactly what our position is. The WASPy women deserve fairness and decency in this society, and under Labour they will get it. But it's also about challenging the unfair pay cap in the public sector and the number of women working in poverty because their pay is so low. It's also about challenging the gender pay gap, not just executive levels of pay, but all through every organisation and every company. So we will be ensuring there is a tough legislative regime to ensure the gender pay gap is closed. Barbara Castle was brilliant in what she did in 1970, but 1970 was a very long time ago. It's time to move on a bit from that. The government, however, has shown itself in its true colours. They did a deal with the DUP, paid £1 billion to the pet projects of the DUP, and then the DUP is busy trying to block every socially progressive measure possible. So I want to congratulate Stella Creasy in forcing the government to agree to provide free abortions on the NHS for all Northern Irish women. Well done. Well done, Stella, on doing that, and we will all be together in supporting her in doing that. Because from the Equal Pay Act, Sex Discrimination Act, Equality Act, Minimum Wage Act and Sure Start, every single progressive piece of legislation for equality has come from the Labour Party. When I was in Corbyn in the general election campaign, and since recently, I went to visit what had been one of the very early Sure Start centres, predecessor of our own Sure Start. Absolutely fantastic, an inspiration. The way in which they brought together parents and children, the way in which women who had not had a very good education, not many chances, were inspired to get support, to get qualifications, and those that had English as a second language were helped in that as well. That's what Sure Start was designed to achieve. We'll protect those Sure Start centres that have remained. We will want to expand them as a Labour government, because that whole principle of children and parents growing up and being educated and educating each other together is what makes a strong, cohesive and coherent society. I'm determined that we achieve that. And so our actions are not just about what we do in this country, it's about what we do and say about people in other parts of the world. The way in which we must support women refugees around the world in the problems and disasters that they face at the present time. Behind every refugee, there's a human being trying to make a life, to survive, and to make a contribution to our society. And we must support them. But we must also think very carefully about our relationship with governments that systematically discriminate against women. And I'm very proud of the work that's been done by our Shadow Foreign Secretary, Emily Thornberry, in calling out the Saudi government for its bombing of Yemen, calling out the Saudi government for its treatment of women and denying them their most basic of rights. Because as a party, we have to be a party for peace, for justice, for human rights and democracy all around the world, as well as the way we want to change and rebalance our society against the levels of inequality we all face. So, with that, I want to say thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being here. And I hope you will all take part in our democracy review so that we, at the end of it, have a more open, more democratic party, widest possible participation, because you know what? Wide participation in policy making leads to more support for the policies we get, leads us to that movement that will bring about the end of this government, but beyond that, the end of the system of inequality and injustice in our society. So it gives me enormous pride and pleasure to introduce our Shadow Foreign Secretary, Emily Thornberry.